Welcome back to the channel. This is 20 Storm and you are watching 4th part of What If Naruto Mastered Ancient Shinobi Way. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
For the next month, Arashigakure no Sato was immersed in training, along with every ninja from simple academy students to Kanshisha himself. They trained with zeal, as if their lives depended on their strength, none more so than Naruto. He was multitasking with 1,000 clones while also doing his own physical and meditative training. The physical and meditative training were brutal, including juggling leaves in a 5-foot radius with his wind-bending ability and slicing it precisely up the center while balancing on one finger upside down on a sharp metal spike. Of course, he'd had to get used to the extra 200 pounds he'd added to each limb in his body while being beaten by clones from each side with wooden staves on his bare skin before he could even begin. Why was his training so harsh and tortuous to himself? It was easy because he is a Jinchuriki. Flashback. Master, Naruto begged, I know I'm not supposed to complain, and I'm not, but is this really normal training? Not at all, the elderly man replied. What? Why? He exclaimed, almost buckling under the enormous weights he was carrying as he ran up the hill. The constricting suit was making matters worse. Is it because you're a Jinchuriki? How does that relate to anything? They say a Jinchuriki is human, but that is not exactly true, Naruto said, his face contorted, but you are neither the demon within nor a Hanyu. Naruto was completely befuddled and disoriented. Let me explain. They paused for a moment. The demon is a part of you in the same way that your heart or any organs are a part of you. Though it does not need to function for you to live, you cannot live without it. You are the warden who keeps it imprisoned, and your body is the prison itself. Your mind must be as strong as or stronger than the beast or it can run the prison from the cell, and your body must be able to. Naruto gave a nod. With this kind of training, you may never need to use its power, but if you do, and you are able to fully use its power without pain or respite, no one shall be able to stand before you. As of now, I only did this for your own safety and well-being, Naruto. I believe so. You will one day, but you have wasted far too much time. End of flashback. In short, it was a sacrifice that had to be made, and it would be made in full, either before or after. While Naruto worked on his body and mind, his clones studied the scrolls that Master Kyoshi had given him. Another scroll contained the known secrets of the elemental blades, of which he and Hinata carried wind and water, respectively. The blades were dangerous in the hands of a normal matching elemental user, but in the hands of a bender, it was a completely different story. The blades themselves were like manifestations of the elements themselves, but using the power of his sword would be irresponsible, so he and Hinata sought guidance from the resident swordmaster, Hagen Riku. They already knew the fundamentals, but developing your own brand and learning the individual styles for each blade required the assistance of a professional. Finally, they developed two distinct sword styles, one for the element of the blade they wielded and the other more of a representation of their own personality and traits. The last scroll was a contract, the rarest kind of contract. In fact, there was no other contract like it. It was a contract for water summoning. According to legend, the Sujin himself drafted this contract. The last part of his training was spent with Jiraiya, learning the finer points of seals and finishing the Rasengan. With his level of control and chakra, it was simple. Of course, he had to forego physical training because this was not something he could learn with clones alone, though it did speed up the process. Despite this, neither the weights nor his restrictive suit were removed. Hinata's training in relativity was not as difficult, but it was no less difficult. She didn't have a demon sealed within her, so she didn't need the intense physical, emotional, and mental control, so she only increased her weights by 75 pounds per limb and body. She worked on the personal sword style she developed with Naruto's clones while studying the scroll on the elemental blades. She also used the opportunity to brush up on her knowledge of medical jutsu and poisons. Medics will be required, as her Mira and, to a lesser extent, Naruto were the only medics available to the 11 of them. The most difficult part of her training was practicing her waterbending, which involved meditating on the surface of the water and forming various shapes and figures with it. This routine eventually gave birth to something extraordinary. They all trained harder than they had ever trained in their lives, pushing themselves past barriers they were unaware they had. But time had run out, and the battles would soon begin. The Iwa ninja were 50 in number, with 10 jonin and 40 chunin. They were divided into 10 groups, each led by 4 chunin and a jonin. They were getting closer to the location of the rumored hidden waterfall village. Unfortunately, all they knew was that it was near a waterfall. No one outside the village knew where it was or how to get there. "What are your instructions, Taiko?" "Set up a perimeter," the Iwa ninja's leader instructed. "Our mission is to prevent the waterfall ninjas from assisting the whirlpool samurai." "Hi." All the ninjas replied before scattering to form a perimeter around the waterfall in case any ninjas emerged. The Earth Army had begun to march, but unlike ninja, they did so at a slow pace and in a single, large mass as they marched steadily towards the border of Tsuchi and Uzumaki. This would take time, but they were confident and a little arrogant, but not stupid enough to believe they could handle an enemy samurai and an enemy ninja lurking in the shadows and lending assistance. The Tsuchi daimyo commissioned Tsuchikage assistants to prevent the waterfall ninjas from entering battle by any means necessary, but they were not permitted to openly aid in the actual battle unless ninja were present. Why didn't he just let the ninja help him fight and defeat the enemy faster? Maybe it was his pride or arrogance, or maybe it was the pride and honor of the samurai he tried to protect. After all, a ninja's pride and honor were not the same as a samurai's, but it didn't matter. Their pride would be forced down their throats, their arrogance would stab them in the back, and many more would perish in the storm. Naruto and 4 of his dragons approached the waterfall that used to be the hidden waterfall village's secret entrance. He carefully selected his team, which included Kumori Mataza, wielder of the metal element, Hikari Shigur, Reizoku Tsubaki, and Sasurama Tanoko. The symbol for their village, 5 long flames flame-like pattern engraved in a spiral, was engraved on their foreheads, arms, or around their legs. Naruto abruptly came to a halt as they approached the waterfall. "Enemy Nin has formed a perimeter," Naruto said quietly. "Let us begin with the plan." They all said, "Hello," before splitting up and going their separate ways. Meanwhile, somewhere near the borders of Tsuchi and Uzumaki, in a field littered with numerous tents arranged in rows and surrounding a much larger one in the center, the generals of the meager army assembled to defend their country sat around several field maps and discussed, argued over battle strategy and the best way to engage the enemy. They were old men, no doubt veterans of many battles and wars that had passed them by, but now they faced the single greatest challenge they had ever faced. They were a small country, and with the addition of another that had no army or economy, they were struggling. They were few in number, but their spirits were high. The daimyo had sent word of extraordinary ninja reinforcement, but he didn't say where from because the village was still unknown, just that they were powerful and should be treated with respect, and that they bore the symbol of 5 flame-like patterns in a swirl. However, this did not prepare them for when their reinforcement arrived. The 6 ninja from the hidden storm walked calmly towards the encampment, while the samurai looked on with disgust, indifference, admiration, or none at all. "Who are you and what do you want?" inquired a samurai in full battle regalia wielding a spear. "We are hidden storm representatives here to reinforce you," Riku replied, "if you would be so kind as to show us to your leaders." His face was like an open book, but he wouldn't say anything because there was no point in getting to know those who were going to die anyway. He motioned to another man dressed similarly to him and instructed the ninjas to follow him. "He will accompany you," said the first samurai, returning his attention to his watch. "Thank you so much," Riku said before turning to follow their escort. As they walked through the camp, the group felt the samurai's eyes on them, some more than others. Women were not thought to be very strong to samurai, so they all assumed they were being insulted in some way. Hinata whispered something to Mari as they walked, and she blurred out of sight in a dash of speed. "Where is that woman going?" Riku inquires of their escort. "You'll find out sooner or later." "Okay," he said flatly as he came to a halt outside the large tent. "We're here." As the escort kneeled on the floor to announce them, the 5 ninja and 1 escort entered the tent. "Matsuo-sama, our reinforcement has arrived." The elderly general and his colleagues turned to greet their rescuers. "Ah, please enter, I-ho." He might have laughed at what he saw in any other situation. Is this some sort of joke? He slapped a hand on the table. "You are the promised reinforcement? Do you have a problem, Matsuo Dono?" He attempted to regain control. "Please forgive my outburst," he apologized, bowing. "This situation has all of us a little stressed." "How many have you brought?" "6 for the time being." "What?" he exclaimed, standing up and glaring at them with daggers. "This must be some sort of joke. How can only 6 of you be of any use to us? This is a grave insult. How dare your leader send such people to our aid and so few?" "What do you mean, Matsuo Dono?" Hinata inquired, attempting to clarify the situation. He grunted at her and returned his attention to Riku. "You must control your subordinates better, they have no respect," he said, looking over to Hinata, who appeared to be unaware of the situation, and then back to Riku. "But I shall answer that question. To begin with, I and most of my men have little trust in ninja, and secondly, you say you have only 6 ninja consisting of a monk look-alike, Kagemusha Jin, a vagabond, Fuma Danjo." Kanta snarled and clenched and unclenched his bandaged fists in response. "A child and a supposed 6th member who isn't even here. Do you think I'm a fool? Can that child fight, and she doesn't even carry a weapon like the rest of you?" Riku chuckled as Hinata took a step forward, a hand emerging from beneath her cape to brush one of 2 locks of hair away from her face, the rest of her hair tied in a single ponytail leading to her mid-back and tied in a black ribbon. She was dressed in a long navy blue skirt with a deep slit down the side, a belt slung on her hips like a cowboy's gun belt with compartments for scrolls and other items, laced-up sandals, and a blue brocade corset over a Monsky kimono and mesh undershirt. She came to a halt in front of the offensive general and locked eyes with him, measuring him. The height difference was almost comical, but the sweat running down his face told a different story. "You insult me even more by laughing, and yet you refuse to subdue your subordinate? I apologize for laughing, but you are one lucky man. What are you on about? I'm not the leader here, I'm just the second in command per Kanshisha's orders." The general paled as he realized he had only insulted 5 of them, with Riku being the exception because he mistakenly believed he was the leader. He might have said something about Riku being blind if he hadn't thought Riku was the leader. He only hoped it wasn't the spider person, because it would be difficult to justify calling him a cripple. The biggest surprise came when Riku waved his hand towards Hinata. "Let me introduce to you, Lady Hyuga Hinata-sama, our team leader, captain of the assassination department, and Fianka copyrightee of the Shodai Kanshisha," Riku continued, "and you are lucky because if you insulted us like that in front of him, I cannot guarantee your safety." "Is Kanshisha's name Naruto Uzumaki?" "Yes, the engagement is not yet official," Hinata replied, returning to her gentle smile, "but have you heard of him?" He'd finished it now. The daimyo was a huge fan of Naruto, so when he summoned his generals to lead the army, he made a point of warning them to treat him with the utmost respect and honor. There had to be something truly special about a man who had the daimyo's respect and favor. How strong is this man? There was no time to think about that now. He had made a serious mistake and there was only one thing to do. So he got down on his knees. Please, I beg your forgiveness. He would redeem his honor even for the sake of his pride. For my blindness and stupidity, I submit myself to your whim. We have a battle to fight, Matsu Dono. We can settle this later, but for now. A commotion could be heard outside as she came to a halt. Go see what's going on outside there, the escort was told by the general's comrade. Something flew through the entrance and landed at the feet of Hinata and the general just as Mari walked in with a seductive sway in her hips. Please accept my apologies, Sukihana-sama. He was a little better than I thought. It's okay. Your timing was perfect, she smiled, then looked down at the half-dazed victim at her feet, and the man's eyes widened with the amount of killing intent that the lavender-eyed girl was focusing on him. Matsu Dono, you had a spy in your camp. Do you want to deal with him or should I? Matsu would never get on her bad side again after that. Even he, a veteran of many wars, battles, and hardships, was terrified by her sheer killing intent and the coldness in her eyes and tone. We'll deal with him. Good. Now that he's here, the attack force against the waterfall shouldn't be far behind. May I borrow a pen? She whipped out a scroll, tore it in half, wrote 2 separate notes on it, handed one to the general, and walked out the tent, followed by the dragons and the general and his entourage. Do not open that message until you are either alone or with people you trust. Outside, she did some hand seals, Kuchiyose no Jutsu. A tennis ball-sized bird appeared and flew on her outstretched finger. You summoned me, he said, looking around. Sukihana-sama? Hi. I need you to get this to Itenpai as soon as possible, but don't tell him until the fight is over. Okay. He was gone in an instant, which should not be possible for a normal bird of that size. Matsu Dono, we're leaving right now. Where are you going? I apologize for insulting you in such a way. Please forgive me. HMHM, there is a reason for our small number. We will fight independently of you, so take heart that you have support from the shadows. She paused and looked over her shoulder. In the open, call me a my fianca, copyright by Sukihana and Itenpai, and take these words of wisdom. Ninja are never what they appear to be. Had it been Itenpai, he would have rendered you into. I comprehend. When they left, he flopped on his ass and let out an unconsciously held breath. If he's as powerful as that girl, I feel sorry for the enemy. He smiled and returned to his work. He is completely unaware. Hinata looked to her side as she walked away from the camp. Kanta, Jin, she said authoritatively, making even her father straighten up, you know what to do. Hi, they said, and then they were gone. 50 Tsuchi shinobi waited outside the waterfall village. The 10 teams were evenly distributed so that they could cover as much ground as possible in order to intercept any shinobi attempting to flee. Unfortunately, this was all they could do because they had no idea how to enter or exit the village or even where the entrance was. This is so boring, a ninja complained to a teammate, sitting around waiting for a bunch of weak cowards to show up. Yeah, his comrade replied, this isn't fun at all. I think I see someone coming this way, you too, the captain said. How could he have missed something approaching him? A hanged Naruto approached him, dressed like his 12-year-old self with the exception of a waterfall symbol instead of a Konoha 1. Naruto confidently approached the team of 5 and came to a halt in front of them. A cocky grin played across his lips as he looked up at a tree. Hey, you bastard, he yelled, pointing to a spot in the tree, what are you doing here? Come out and face me if you dare. Who the hell does this brat think he is? Sneered the ninja who had been apprehended. He gave his leader a few hand signals for instructions. The leader responded by saying that another member would catch him off guard. Hey, you bastard, an enraged Naruto yelled, stop hiding, I know you're there. If you won't come out, then I'll. Before completing his sentence, he jumped to the side, narrowly avoiding a kunai thrown from his side. What the hell, he said, taking his gaze away from the first man, there's another one. It doesn't matter. I'll take on both of you cowards. Your mothers would be ashamed of you. That final remark was the final straw. Iwa had the biggest ego among the 5 major shinobi villages, closely followed by Kiri. They would not stand there and be called weak by some midget ninja. 4 ninja in Iwa Hideite surrounded the obnoxious blonde with kunai and swords in an instant. You got some mouth on you, brat, one gritted teeth. We're going to have to do something about that, another said. Wait, yelled Naruto, sweat pouring down his brow, you'll regret it if you take another step. They were all laughing as they approached him. I mean it, he said emphatically, not another step. What's the matter, kid? The first man asked, a wicked smile on his face, all out of. What the? A rope sprung from the ground and ensnared his foot, hauling him high in the air. At that point, Naruto used the distraction to sucker punch the other in the face, while the third, in his attempt to jump back to avoid the boy, clipped a tripwire and was completely pelted with a barrage of pink paint-filled balloons. Naruto laughed at them before turning his gaze to the still-hidden leader. Your men are pathetic, he exclaimed as the man emerged from hiding, no wonder they stink, you look like a complete loser. You guys are nothing more than a bunch of loser assholes calling yourselves ninja. The 5's killing intent was palpable as they ground their teeth and clenched their fists. Kill the brat, the leader said. Oh my god. With that, the 5 pursued him, throwing kunai and shuriken at the blonde troublemaker in the hopes of catching him off guard. They didn't think once in their rage-induced minds about how an obvious idiot like that got the drop on them. There'd be time for that after they killed the brat. They were becoming increasingly irritated after a few minutes of chasing that none of their weapons had hit the boy, only missing by very narrow margins. Naruto ran until he reached the waterfall and slipped through the village's hidden entrance. Halt, the leader said as they came to a halt right outside his front door. The stupid brat led us right to his front door. He waved, and within seconds the area was swarming with the 50 ninja who had come to suppress the waterfall shinobi, but the leader was enraged because he had been humiliated and insulted by a stupid, orange jumpsuit-wearing teenager. This offense would not be tolerated. Kill everyone you come across, he ordered as his men filed through the gap behind the waterfall. Naruto smiled to himself in the cave's shadows. He was not wearing the jumpsuit. Instead, he was dressed in navy blue pants taped to his ankle, a navy blue long-sleeved shirt with a slit beneath the neck done up with lace instead of buttons, fingerless gloves, tabbies, and a black bell-sleeve hooded coat that reached to his ankle. Stage 1, clear, he thought as he practiced a few hand seals for a simple genjutsu. Let stage 2 begin. The ninjas dashed through the dimly lit halls, looking for anyone. Following a few splits, there were now 5 groups of Iwa shinobi, each with 10 members, 2 jonin and 8 chunin. They split up to cover more ground. Unfortunately, this could be a costly mistake. Group 1 walked along the lit corridors, not in a hurry. The waterfall ninja were weaklings after all, and that brat before only got the drop on them because he was so insignificant. They would not make that mistake again. They eventually arrived at the village and came to a halt. In their path was a man in a black hooded coat, the hood's shadow hiding his eyes. 2 Iwa shinobi charged him without warning, attempting to kill him on the spot, but he simply blurred out of sight and tossed a senbon in the back of their necks, knocking them unconscious instantly. He simply tossed senbon into various parts of their body and removed the one in their neck after crumpling to the ground. They couldn't move or speak after they awoke. What did you do to my men? The leader asks, now presenting himself. Who are you and where are you from? You ask a lot of questions, Naruto said, peering out from under his hood, but first, if you don't mind, are you in charge of the 50 men who were brought? Yes, he replied, reaching for his pouch slowly, now answer my One more question, Naruto interrupted, because you are the main leader, it is only fair that I ask you this. He paused for a moment to assess the remaining 8 men, then continued in a darker tone. What are your plans? Ha! The leader laughed as he threw 3 kunai at him in the hopes of distracting the ninja, isn't it obvious? Now die. To his great surprise and dismay, the man caught the offending weapons in midair with his left hand's fingers while making a seal with his left hand, dispelling the genjutsu he had that made the entire cave system appear to have light. It's a shame, he said in one area before moving on to another. This could have been settled much more easily, but you've openly threatened my home. All hell broke loose, and stage 3 began. These damn tunnels go on forever, one man said as he and his comrades searched for the enemy. Stop aching your stomach, another said, another word from you and I'll kill you myself. I apologize, Captain. The men, clearly one of the 2 team captains in this squad of 10, were becoming tense and stir-crazy due to the monotony of the tunnels. I wonder if this is wondered the other captain. Before he could finish his question, the lights went out, as if all the torches that lit the halls had been extinguished. Genjutsu! Exclaimed the same man. He put his hands in the Ramseal's mouth and yelled, Kai, but nothing happened. What's the matter, Captain? The first captain yelled, get down. As something sharp flew overhead, the ninja dove to the ground, narrowly avoiding decapitation. Unfortunately, not all 10 were so fortunate, as 3 headless bodies crumpled to the ground, their heads rolling a short distance away from their bodies, one of which found its way to another of the ninja as its lifeless eyes stared at him on the floor. The ninja bolted up and was about to scream when something ripped through his chest from behind, obliterating a single lung and his heart with a swift swipe. The last sound he made was a dull thud as his lifeless body fell to the ground. There are 4 down and 6 to go. Shit. Cursed the captain, whispering to his remaining men, defensive formation, now. The remaining ninja, 4 chunin and 2 jonin, formed a ring and brandished kunai to defend from all sides. We know you're out there, you bastard, an inexperienced chunin yelled, but there was no response. What's the matter, scared? Nothing happened again, as if the attacker had vanished into the darkness that surrounded them. Huh, all I got was a hit and he never got a chance to finish because a kunai was thrust into the side of his neck, slicing cleanly through his carotid artery. When the man on the other side of the dead man realized his comrade had died, he realized he was in grave danger. He yelled, the enemy is in the formation. He swung around with his kunai in hand, hoping to save his own life or become a hero. You fool, stop! Yelled one of the captains, but it was too late. He had already murdered his own comrade. Unfortunately, in his shock, he let down his guard, leaving himself wide open to a sword that stabbed him in the gut. There are 3 more to go. This is bad, Captain, the last chunin said, noticing the large amount of sweat doing a great impression of a spring. He was terrified, and it was clear in his voice. Calm down, the first captain said sternly, you are an Iwa ninja, act like it. Whoever you were out there, the other captain said, you have great skill, but unfortunately you still have to deal with 2 jonin level ninja and you are still only 1. Fighting a single jonin will be difficult, let alone 2. Hopefully, the ninja will be persuaded to reveal his position. 2 jonin and 1 chunin, the assailant said, revealing her position. For some reason, the fact that the enemy was female gave them a bit of courage, but the stench of blood reminded them that she had already killed 7 of them. Fool. The first captain thought as he launched a pair of kunai at the lone kunoichi, she'll be dead now that I know exactly where she is. He ran in the direction of the voice, leaving his thrown weapon in his wake, only to come to a halt halfway when he heard his weapons clang against something metal. Shit. He exclaimed, realizing the folly of his ways. He'd left the formation and was now on his own, making it easier for the opponent to take him out, but what he didn't realize was that Tsubaki had done a kawarimi with the windmill shuriken she'd thrown earlier and was now on the hunt for the other two, the other captain in the last Chunin. He stood back to back with the Chunin, thinking about how stupid his other comrade was. He's probably dead by now, he reasoned, when he heard something whistling through the air at high speeds. It sounded sharp and deadly, and he quickly parried the arrow out of the air, but to his surprise, there was another drafting in its wake. It is unusual for multiple weapons to arrive in such a precise line that if the one in front is removed, the one directly behind it will slightly speed up, completely surprising the target. It was difficult to deflect when you could see it, but in the dark, it was nearly unstoppable. It's no surprise she earned the black scythe. See, Captain? The terrified Chunin asked in the dim light after hearing a dull thunk, and then something heavy fall to the floor. Are you all right, Captain? He didn't hear anything. He took a step back as he drew the second kunai, thinking that if he had more weapons, he would be safe. He backed up against a wall, but instead of cold, hard stone, he felt something soft against his back, and he relaxed until a hand slid over his mouth and a kunai dragged across his throat. He died and fell to the ground. The last member of the group, the first captain, stood in the dark, turning every which way to hear every sound and possible sound. He thought he was going to die, but why was it taking so long? Then he heard footsteps in the distance, slow at first, then abruptly stopping. He hit against the wall and made a Suchi bunshin while waiting for the woman. "Hey, did you get that bitch?" exclaimed the bunshin. Something ripped into the clone, slicing it in half, just as the black scythe tore the man in half, causing him to crumble into stone. Suchi bunshin? She wondered before being stabbed in the back with a kunai. "Finally got you," the last man said as he pulled something from his pouch. "Now let's see that face." He lit the flare with his teeth and held it close to his victim to get a better look at her. His kunai was buried, to his surprise, not in the back of an enemy ninja, but in the back of one of his fallen comrades. What? He wondered, but he didn't have much time because his survival instinct yelled at him to block to the left with his kunai. He felt and heard something make contact with his kunai. Heavy, he thought as he inserted the flare into his mouth with both hands. To his surprise, in the light provided by the flare, he saw that his kunai was currently blocking a scythe, and to his great panic, he could see the black razor-sharp blade of the scythe as it loomed around his body, blocking any escape. Despite the circumstances, he couldn't help but notice the symbol engraved on her forehead protector. "Who are you?" he asked, knowing that his time was limited and that any slight movement on his or her part would end his life. Reizoku Tsubaki, Silent Dragon of the 10 Storm Dragons. As a final show of bravado and defiance, he smiled cockily and said, "Hey, I've never heard of you." The scythe tore through his body from the opposite side in one quick pulling movement, permanently cutting him down to size. Tsubaki looked at the man, or half of him at her feet, then saw the bodies of her other 9 kills in the light of the flare, and it dawned on her that she had just killed 10 men with not a single scratch on her body. She took up her windmill shuriken, cleaned her weapons, and went to see if her comrades needed anything. "I doubt it," she walked, "but those are his orders." Mission accomplished. They heard it as the lights went out. All they could hear were whispers. They heard her words like the loud whispers of beautiful angels. Though said in hushed tones, they were carried on the still air of the cave. Then, from the darkness, a light led them. A soft, pink glow from around a nearby corner drew them in closer. If any of them survived when they arrived around the corner, they would describe it as a near-death experience that they would gladly repeat. In front of them, seated in a lotus position with her hands in the rooster seal, a plume of pink chakra in the shape of peacock feathers and her pink hair moving as if on its own or as a result of the chakra's force. They were all transfixed by her beauty and lost in her chant. Unfortunately, they didn't listen to the words as they slipped through her lips like water in a swift stream. Swift and without pause and flowing in a string like rhythmic poetry. They were so engrossed that they didn't notice the swarms of crawling cave dwellers like scorpions, spiders, and snakes creeping towards them and eventually up and into their clothing. The first man to notice began to itch, followed by another, while others experienced sharp stinging pains in various parts of their bodies. "What the?" a Chunin exclaimed as he reached under his shirt and pulled out a scorpion. "Shit." He threw it to the ground before stomping on the beast. It was almost comical to watch 10 grown men and women dance around, expelling and attempting to expel various critters from their clothing. "How the hell did all these bugs get on us?" exclaimed a Chunin as he attempted to reach an impossible-to-reach spot on his back. "I'm not sure," said another. "It's that bitch," a third yelled. "She must be controlling them in some way. Murder her." "Stop it, you fools," one of the Jonins leading the group yelled. "If you move too much, you'll all die faster from the poison. Take your antidotes. We'll look after you." He and the other Jonin, a kunoichi, remained alert at the time, drawing kunai and charging the pink chakra kunoichi. The chant continued as the men attempted to draw out vials and capsules to take whatever medication they had, but as they did, bats from the ceiling swarmed them, biting and scratching at their faces and hands. Bats didn't usually attack people, but these were mercilessly attacking them, and with the poison in ninjas' systems from the various insect bites, they were becoming sluggish and some even convulsing. While their subordinates were being attacked, the two Jonin approached the girl when a scream alerted them to their comrade's danger. "Go ahead," the kunoichi said, "I'll help them." "Right." She turned back and dashed off to save her comrades, but before she could finish her jutsu, she stopped and immediately rolled to her side when a clawed paw came down and ate her, nearly scarring her for life. "What sort of creature is this?" she muttered to herself. A 7-foot red panda with 4-inch long claws and pink glowing eyes, sharp fangs, bristly fur, and obviously quite fast for its size considering how close it came earlier, stood in front of her, and she drew a kunai in preparation for the fight with a sympathetic expression on her face. "You poor thing," she said, taking a low stance, "I shall deliver you from the clutches of that wretched woman. She will never again manipulate you in this manner." Those words only served to enrage the creature as it charged at her at speeds uncharacteristic of the normally calm animal, but this animal was anything but normal. Meanwhile, the other Jonin was fighting Shigur. Her plumes swayed as she parried, sidestepped, blocked, and attacked. Her opponent was having difficulty with the girl. Despite her girlish appearance, she did not act like it. Her eyes were stern and focused, and there was no expression on her face to indicate whether she was having difficulty or having fun. She had transformed into a shinobi for the battle, a complete change from her usual self. "You are quite skilled," the male Jonin observed, "but you have no chance of defeating me in my katana with that kitchen knife of yours." Shigur ducked a decapitating strike, rolled backwards, came to a halt, and glared at her opponent with her pink eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. "What's the problem, little girl?" he mocked. "You are quite irritating," she said, pointing her blade at the man, "but let's finish this, my companion requires some assistance." "Hey, if you want to die so badly," he said, pointing his sword at her. They charged at each other, the gap closing rapidly. The man grinned sickly as he approached her. Her mere 1.5-foot blade was no match for his full-length katana. He underestimated her and that would be his undoing. His katana, a mere 2 inches from her body, he could almost feel her death by his blade. Maybe he would show her mercy and bring her back to Iwa to add her power to their own. "How?" he rasped, blood streaming from his mouth's corners. With only 2 inches to go, her death should have been certain, but she was still there, with death whispering in his ear and those eyes that seemed to glow warmly yet coldly only invited him to relax and fear at the same time. He looked down at his stomach to see that her sword really did pierce him, but not the metal blade. It was the chakra, which acted like an extension and lengthening her sword and had no extra weight because it was chakra. "You've never seen the mysterious peacock method before," she said rather than asked, "and I am one it cannot kill. Its only ability is unrivaled chakra control. So you didn't have control over the animals?" He rasped back. "That's one of the reasons I'm the only one it won't kill. My body has evolved to the point where it has mutated." "I see," he said before disappearing into the pink light of her chakra. The turning point came when she saw the chakra blade sticking out the back of her comrade. In a brief moment of bad judgment, she turned away from her own battle to run and assist her fellow Jonin. The panda took this opportunity to rip a gash across her back with its claw, causing the woman to stumble forward and into the panda. "Good job, Coco-chan," she said, rubbing behind its ear to remove the chakra that increased its overall strength and vitality. "Let's go meet the others, you can nap in the meantime." She cradled the animal, which was no bigger than a regular red panda, as it fell asleep. "I wonder how everyone else did," she said as she walked away with Coco in her arms, noticing the woman breathing lightly on the floor. Naruto-sama said not to kill anyone more than necessary, she thought to herself. "What happened to the torches?" A female chunin inquired, "Is this a genjutsu?" "No, the genjutsu is gone," the team leader replied, "be on your guard. We've walked right into a trap." In order to respond to whatever they were about to face, the ninjas broke glow sticks and lit flares and drew weapons while taking defensive positions in 2 groups of 4 and 1 group consisting of the 2 Jonin. "You are quite perceptive, Iwa Shinobi-san," a voice from the shadows said, "and you have indeed walked into a trap. Who are you? Show yourself," yelled a Jonin. Footsteps followed the command as a rather ordinary-looking man emerged from the shadows. They all stiffened as he made a quick movement and bent at the waist. "Good evening, my name is Sasurama Tanoko, the polite dragon of the Jiryu no Arashi. Please treat me well," he smiled, raising his head, "and for this evening, I shall be your executioner." They all stared at him as he took his stance and began swinging a razor chain with kama attached to both ends. "Do you mean to say you're the only one here?" He nodded, "Ha ha ha ha, what kind of trap is that?" He was unfazed as he continued to swing his chain, only with greater vigor and more intricate patterns. "Whatever," laughed the man, "are you here to dance or are you here to fight?" "I think he's here to die," another joked. "Let us begin, Kamasora Habi no Mai, as you wish." He charged into the ninjas, shocking each of them, and before they could react, he was already on the first group of 4, and they split up because they had confirmed that there was only one enemy, and that he was a fool. How stupid could one man be if he charged straight into 10 men with nothing but a razor chain and 2 kama? Tanoko approached the first man, and as he swiped at Tanoko's face with a kunai, he ducked under the weapon and swung his razor chain around the man's wrist, at the same time swung the other half of the chain around the man's chest in such a way that the kama at the end came back at him as he flipped over another offending opponent who was approaching from the back, only for the kama to plunge into his. The remaining 5 disengaged and regrouped as Tanoko took a different stance, this time with the chain still connected to the kama as he held one upside down in his left hand at his hip and the other upright at his left shoulder while his forearm shielded his face and his body turned so that only his side was visible to the enemy. What in the world is this? We can't get at him from any direction or angle, and attacking in groups makes little difference, a Chunin observed. Alright, listen up, one of the 2 Jonin said, I have an idea. His chain is insufficient for a long distance. Come down. When he heard something humming through the air, the other Jonin yelled. The kama that spun through the air barely missed them as it returned to its owner, who easily caught it and reconnected it to his razor chain. Damn, exclaimed the first Jonin as he rose to his feet and took a defensive stance, he can detach those things and pass through them? Shit. That means he can cover close, medium, and long range, a female Chunin explained. I guess I underestimated his strength, the first Jonin admitted. He can fight at long, close, and medium range. So, what are we going to do? He has already killed 5 of our comrades, inquired the last Chunin as he hopped over Kama. We attack from all 3 angles. What? With those things, his attack is flawless, but they don't allow for much defense. I see, if we attack from all 3 distances and directions, he won't be able to defend against all of them. Right, he admitted quietly, reform on me. Pardon me for asking, but have you decided to give up? Asked the polite dragon, it would be better for all of us if we stopped fighting. Our leader does not want to see any more bloodshed unless absolutely necessary. Permit me to ask you a question, Tanoko-san, the second Jonin said. You may do so, but depending on the question, I may be unable to respond. That's fine, the Jonin said, but where are you from? I've never seen anything like your village symbol. I am from the storm-hidden village, he replied. Who is your boss? I'm afraid I can't respond. It was worth a shot, he muttered, but why are you defending the waterfall ninjas? We're not defending the waterfall ninja. You're hostile ninja in another land. I'm sorry, but I'm unable to answer any further questions. Alright, he smirked, now die, you fool. A boulder came flying from behind him at the same time as the man speaking with him launched a flurry of kunai and shuriken at him. From the left and right came simultaneous stone-covered fists and from above a shower of tennis ball-sized stone, all timed to arrive on targets mere moments apart. He went to the floor in a lotus position faster than the eye could see, detaching both Kama and whirling one at the giant boulder coming at his back and the other at the woman who launched the attack from above, whirling the razor chain around his body at a speed so fast that they started to blur then started to glow. Kagekumasori Shoheki Ugi no Jutsu. What the hell is that? Exclaimed the man to his left, I can't stop. Yeah, me too. Their stone-covered fists came from both sides immediately after the small stones and volley of thrown weapons collided with the defense jutsu and were shredded to bits by the mixture or razor chain endowed with the power of wind chakra. The large boulder was not in a better position as it sliced cleanly through the stone separating it, causing it to miss its main target and collide with the 2 ninja who had their hand shredded by the barrier crushing. Tanoko spun around, causing the end of his chain without the Kama to strike at him like a whip and was quickly followed up with the other end of his chain with the Kama which viciously ripped into his neck in a move of pure skill. Impossible. Exclaimed the Jonin who had posed the question, he even killed 3 more of my men. The female Chunin landed next to her senior ninja from the ceiling. What will we do now that there are only 2 of us? Retreat, he sighed heavily. Hi. She threw a smoke bomb to cover their escape and managed to get a long way away until a Kama stopped them and the razor chain erupted from the ground, wrapping them up and anchoring them to the spot. Please accept my apologies, but you are my prisoners until this is over, he said as he walked up ahead of them. You shall remain harm-free if you refrain from struggling and comply with my superior's words. How did you arrive before us? There is no mystery, he explained, this is home turf, so I know it a lot better than you do. Clank. What happened just now? I'm not sure, but the lights went out and there was this metallic sound. Captain, one of the Chunin yelled. What exactly is it? It was sealed off by some sort of metal wall the way we came back. What, how could that be? He wondered as he returned the way he had come, but we just came this way. Indeed, you did, said a voice from the shadows. Who is there? Exclaimed the other captain, show yourself or we will have to kill you. Please, lower your voices, the stranger said, shouting is such an unappealing thing to do. Especially when it is unnecessary. Allow me to get the lights. Get down, one of the ninja yelled. Gukakyu no Jutsu, Kaiten. He performed the jutsu twice, lighting the torches and bathing the room in light as the light reflected off the metal surface behind the Iwa ninja. Now that you can see me, I'd rather not get my hands dirty with fighting, so could you just surrender so we can go see my most wonderful leader? What a moron, one of the ninjas exclaimed. What was it? Mataza inquired. The fool thinks he's the most beautiful thing in the world, but he's so stupid that he demands we surrender to him. They all burst out laughing at the insult. Let's just kill this jerk and then go kill whatever loser of a leader was stupid enough to take him as a subordinate and send them to whatever waste of space village he came from. Look at his hideout, he's not even a waterfall ninja. Those wusses are a blight on this place. They all laughed before coming to an abrupt halt when a sudden killing intent ascended. You have made many mistakes today, Mataza said. You have insulted my beauty, my leader, my friends, my village, and my country by stepping on whirlpool soil. Even the Buddha only gives 3 chances. You have exhausted your options. He began to perform hand seals faster than the eye could see. Tetsuban Shoujo no Funbo, Hijutsu. He changed his hand sign, and the next thing he heard was the sound of flesh being impaled in the gurgled screams of men and women in agony. After a few more moments, the sounds of death stopped, and he lowered the wall, revealing men and women skewered in every possible part of their bodies, both back and front. This is one of my clan's most heinous methods. It surrounds the victim with metal walls and sprouts spikes from every metallic and earthen surface. It's not pretty, but it's too good for such creatures. He was about to walk away when he heard someone groaning and turned around to see that someone had survived the technique, so he carefully walked over to the ninja, taking care not to step in any blood. I am surprised you survived that technique, Mataza said without remorse, but that is all you did. The ninja, who had their entire face covered, only looked up at the man. I was only. The ninja was unmistakably female. Mataza squatted down to remove the mask and check for a pulse, and what he saw when he removed her mask nearly knocked him over. What a beauty, he thought, but she was among those who used such words. It doesn't matter, Naruto-sama said, such a magnificent leader, not to harm those who cannot fight more than necessary. He rechecked her pulse and discovered that she was still alive but that her pulse was failing. It appears that today will also end on a high note for you. He picked her up bridal style and made his way out, skipping over the dead bodies of those he remembered fondly, insulting everything he held dearest. Buddha only forgives 3 times. Naruto stood in the darkness, listening to the remaining 8 ninja yell, Kai. I assure you, this is not genjutsu, echoed his voice, or was it a trick? This is your true surroundings. When you walked in, you saw the real genjutsu. If you all surrender now, I will spare your lives. However, if you continue to be hostile, you will all be dead in less than 5 minutes. Ha, you can see everything we can. Only that voce throwing shit keeps me from attacking you. Is that correct? Naruto asked, peering over the man's shoulder. He spun around quickly and punched the air. Don't fuck with me, yelled the enraged Jonin. I'll rip you to shreds and burn your pathetic village to the ground if I get my hands on you. If you insist on being this way, Naruto said, sighing. Saying they didn't know what hit them was a grave understatement, possibly the biggest understatement in history. Within seconds Naruto had laid waste to the 8 ninja. The only sound heard by the 2 disabled ninja on the ground was the sound of dead bodies collapsing with the floor and punches and bones breaking. They couldn't move, they could only listen and hope he didn't kill them when he was finished with his comrades. Less than a minute and there was no more sound, which, combined with his speed without his weights and his assassin's method of applying his closed fist taijutsu, was all it took to dispatch the 8. Please don't kill us, one of the men thought as something grabbed his arm. If I was going to kill you, you would have been dead by now, he said sternly, but I am going to remove the needles from you too, and if you do anything stupid, you will be dead. And, in case you were wondering, I don't read minds. Naruto stood outside the entrance with his 2 prisoners, waiting for the rest of his ninja to arrive. The first to arrive was Mataza, who hurriedly ran towards him with a bundle in his arms, which Naruto noticed was a woman on closer inspection. "Place her down here quickly," Naruto said. "What did you do with her? Did you use that technique?" "No, Naruto-sama," he said, calming her down. "She would have died if I had used that technique, and besides, such beautiful techniques would be too good for what they said." "And which one did you use?" "Most of your techniques are pretty lethal," Naruto asked as green healing chakra wafted from his hands. "I used Tetsuban Shoujo no Funbo," he explained as he looked down at the female form beneath Naruto's arms. "I am a good medic, but I am nowhere near Sukihana's skill," he said as the green glow on his hands faded, "but I can stabilize her until we return to." The newcomer was detected by a flutter of wings. "She appears to have a message for us?" he said as he extended his finger. A bird the size of a tennis ball flew from the trees and landed on Naruto's outstretched finger, where he read the note it carried in its beak. It appears that there was an unexpected guest in the samurai camp. Tsubaki emerged from the tunnel with the black scythe over her shoulder and Koko in the other arm, Tanoko leading 2 prisoners by his chain, and Shigure hauling an unconscious prisoner over her shoulders. "It's about time you got here," Naruto joked as he wrote back on the same note, using a nearby boulder as a desk and handing it back to the bird. "Sukihana sent us a message. Our deepest apologies, Itenpai-sama," Tanoko said, picking up on the hints. "Returning these prisoners slowed our progress." "Well, as long as we're all here," he explained, "the battle will start in a few days, and we'll need to return these people to our village. Everyone, gather around me, we're about to leave. When I return, I have to issue a B-rank mission to recover the bodies in that cave." "Kagesachi no Jutsu," he said, and the group of elite ninjas and their captives vanished into the air, as if fading from reality, a modification he and Hinata had worked out with the jutsu. 4 pairs of eyes watched the gathering from the shadows, 2 behind white animal masks as they too vanished to meet their team, and the last 2, black cloaks with clouds on them, made their way to where the 5 had vanished, looked around, and then left. "What was that all about, Itachi?" Kisame, the shark man, inquired. "I just wanted to make sure," he said quietly as they walked away. "Did they think they could actually hold me?" said the ninja to himself as he dashed away from the Whirlpool Army's samurai camp. "I have to return to warn the Tsuchikage and the daimyo that Whirlpool country has hired some unknown ninja village. I'm afraid you won't be going anywhere. So close, but so far away. Who the hell are you?" the Iwa spy inquired. "That isn't important," Jin said. "What is important is who you are and that you have provided us with the perfect opportunity to infiltrate our enemy." "What?" "I'm going to use your image and personality to infiltrate the ranks of the Iwa samurai." "Like hell you are," he said, drawing a kunai to prove his point. "You're going to die first." But as he tried to move forward, he became entangled in some sort of sticky substance. "What in the world is this?" "You cannot break, only make worse," a slightly deformed figure said as he revealed himself on a branch. Before being knocked unconscious, the Iwa spy glared at his captors. "It's been a while since I've gone deep cover," Jin said as he reached into his pouch and pulled out various vials and containers for his transformation. "Don't worry, I'm your anchorman, everything will be fine," Kanta said as he stripped the unconscious ninja. "But won't Henge be easier?" "It would be, but I don't want to risk dropping it, and more importantly, I want to save as much chakra as possible," he said as he dressed himself in the Iwa shinobi's clothing and Hitai-ite, they'd never know what happened. "Do we go now?" Kanta asked as he tied up the ninja and leaned him against a tree. "Someone will come to question him." "Alright, let's go." They were off, but they didn't travel together. Jin moved quickly along the ground while Kanta followed him from the shadows in case they encountered any enemy forces, whether ninja or samurai, and Jin was discovered. After traveling a long distance, they came across an encampment of samurai dressed in similar armor to the Whirlpool samurai, except theirs appears to be of much higher quality and bears the earth symbol. It appears Hinata-sama was correct. Jin thought as he walked calmly into the encampment, they are much closer to the border than we thought, and it appears that the bloodshed will begin tomorrow. Halt. State your purpose, a burly guard said as he and his companion crossed their naginata in front of him. Your daimyo hired me to gather information, and I was told to bring it here, he explained, and I'd like to finish my mission now. They cleared the way for him as he presented them with proof. Go ahead. Our daimyo has been waiting for you, and he is in that tent with the generals. This is an interesting development, he reflected as he approached the tent. This should be fun. Meanwhile, Kanto was performing an important task in the vicinity. It wasn't enough to enter the camp disguised as a ninja. That would be foolish because ninjas were always looked down on. Jin would have to assume the identity of someone not too noticeable or important in order to successfully infiltrate. Kanta's task was to find such a person. Today would be his lucky day. A lone samurai training alone would be an ideal target. His armor, which was piled nearby, bore no symbol of superiority or command. He would be ideal, but he would have to be removed before he could be replaced. Kanta crept up on him, clinging to the shadows, and clasped a hand over the unsuspecting samurai's mouth. I don't care if you prefer death. All I want is your name. He gradually removed his hand from his mouth, but he prevented him from seeing his identity. What would you want to know my name for? He asked, failing to sound brave. Kanta would have to think quickly. He may not be the brightest, but in his 1 month of training, he learned a thing or two about deception, which he picked up quickly. I want you as a student. You have potential, so I need to know your name. What could you possibly teach me? He wondered. I can teach so no one can sneak up on you, he lied, knowing he was getting through, so what you say? Noma Psycho, Psycho. Thank you, Psycho-kun. You can now sleep. He then knocked him out with a solid strike to the back of the neck. He had to keep him alive so Jin could at least study his voice and some of his actions. Someone had to know him so his cover wouldn't be blown if he was approached. Kanta took the samurai and hit him with his weapon and armor. He needed to see Jin in a few minutes. Jin finally arrived after some time. Did you find someone? Yes, Kanta said as he turned to leap into the tree. Jin relayed the information he obtained while in the enemy camp about the presence of the daimyo, as well as the false information he provided them. He had told them that they were much smaller than they appeared and that there would be no ninja assistance or backup. They eventually found the location where Kanta had hidden the samurai. After stripping him down to his underwear and tossing the articles of clothing to Jin, Kanta dragged the unconscious man from where he had stashed him in the armor and proceeded to wake him up. The samurai awoke a few seconds later. What happened? He wondered, a little dazed. The last thing I remember was talking to this guy who snuck up on me and then. He noticed the men who woke him up wearing his clothes and armor, and then he noticed the hideout the other man was wearing. He immediately realized something was wrong and that he was in trouble and tried to get to his feet but couldn't because he was bound by some kind of webbing. Who are you? He inquired. Why, I am you, Jin said with a grin, unsealing a wig and putting it on while continuing to apply makeup. Now if you don't mind, would you accompany my partner and he will bring you to our comrades? I will never accompany you. You should kill me right now. We don't kill, but we keep you alive and make your existence miserable. In other words, Jin explained as he slid his makeup kit away, we have no interest in killing you, but if we did, you'd be dead a long time ago, or we could simply torture you until you spill everything you know. This matter is no longer in your hands. The samurai couldn't argue. These men were intimidating to say the least, and they had easily incapacitated him. Kanta, do you know what you're doing? Yes. Good luck to me. With a push, both men dashed off in different directions, Jin disguised as the samurai to infiltrate their base and do as much damage as possible without being discovered, and Kanta carrying the captured samurai over his shoulder towards their staging point near the Whirlpool Samurai's encampment. Hinata sat with the generals at a table. They were reviewing the battle plans one last time before the battle the next day, hoping to incorporate the ninjas in some way. Once again, please accept my heartfelt apologies for my behavior toward you and your people earlier today. It's fine, but why have you asked me to come here? Ah yes, one of the other generals said, clearing his throat to speak, we decided to include your ninjas in our battle plans, but we'd need to know. I'm sorry, but I cannot reveal my ninja's abilities to you, Hinata said solemnly, without raising her voice and remaining completely calm. Is that correct? He asked, his gaze fixed on her, and why can't you reveal their abilities to us? It's simple. A ninja does not reveal his or her skill to others, and as the leader, it would be irresponsible and treacherous of me to reveal information about my own subordinates. With all due respect, Lady Hinata, despite her position, General Number 2 found it difficult to refer to her as such. Aren't we in this fight together? Of course, we are allies. After all, Whirlpool Country is my home as well as yours, she said as she looked around the table at the generals, but the techniques that we use must not be known to others other than those of the same village. I see, but to my knowledge, information on ninjas can be obtained from specific books and made available to ninjas from various countries and villages. He grinned. Am I right, Lady Hinata? You are, she smirked, but none of that information was given willingly, and ninjas frequently die retrieving such information. Besides, I am taking a large enough risk by allowing you to use my real name. General Number 2 was about to speak when Kanta appeared behind Hinata's seat in a puff of smoke, carrying a bound man over his shoulders. What does this mean? General Number 2 half yelled, this is supposed to be a closed discussion. Kanta ignored him, dropping the man to the floor and kneeling on one knee to Hinata. I apologize for interrupting, but I have important news. What is it? She inquired. Earth Army attack tomorrow, but from the same direction, Itenpai-sama predicted, but no half number, I think it's the entire army. What? Are you sure? General Number 1 asked, rising to his feet. What else can you tell us, and who is that man? Jin infiltrate and provide incorrect information about your numbers and battle strategy. Kanta paused, he replaces this samurai and infiltrates to do more damage to the army. He indicated the man on the floor. Damn, General Number 2 exclaimed, is this Jin fellow any good as a spy, Lady Hinata? Don't worry, I told my subordinates to tell them that your numbers were half the original value, and Jin is more than capable of fulfilling his mission. He is a member of Jukyu no Arashi chosen by Itenpai himself, and his actions tonight will make the upcoming battle a little more even. Tsuchi Daimyo is with them. This changes things a little, she thought to herself. She turned her head towards Kanta and nodded, after which he dashed away in a blur. But they have 300,000 or 500,000 samurai, General Number 3 said for the first time, and even if they use half of that, we will be vastly outnumbered. What can one man possibly do? Hinata stood up and walked towards the entrance this time. We have pledged our support to you, so rest assured that if the plan is followed correctly, all will be well. She glared at them now to emphasize her next point. It is critical that we all adhere to the daimyo's plan. I apologize, Lady Hinata, General Number 1 said, but how can we trust you, and how do you know the plans were drawn up by the daimyo? That's simple, she said to the group. Itenpai-kun greatly assisted the daimyo in making the plans, which I hope you didn't tamper with. I see, General Number 2 said, but the plans had to be slightly tweaked because there were too many flaws. Revisit the original plans, but this time factor in the fact that the shadows will be your ally. They exchanged glances before one of them opened a locked chest to retrieve the original scrolls of the battle plans given to them by the daimyo himself. It was placed on the table, and the four men pored over it until they reached a decision. Lady Hinata, it appears that you are correct. The original plans are indeed made to account for your forces. Yes, but there's something we're forgetting. General number 3 says, there are only 5 of you, the plan will never work. I am confident that the plan will succeed, and that Itenpai and the others will be present regardless. He is the type of person he is. I see, Matsuo said as he rolled back up the scroll and tucked it away. In that case, we're all set, and all our fates will be set tomorrow. Indeed, Hinata replied before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto and his 4 dragons emerged from the hidden storm's gate, their hostages either restrained or unconscious. Mataza, you and Shiger, carry those 2 to the hospital, Naruto said, pointing to the 2 injured Iwa nins they were carrying. Tanoko, you and Tsubaki are with me. We are going to escort these 4 to the holding area. Meet back in my office within an hour. Hi. They all left after that. An hour later, they were all in Kanshisha's office, Naruto's office. Shiger, where has Koko gone? Naruto inquired, noting her empty arms. The lady said she wasn't a doctor, but Koko-chan would need a few hours of rest to heal completely. It wasn't anything serious, just a few slip-ups. When Shiger was in battle, she was cold, cunning and as sharp as a sword, but when she wasn't, she took on the persona of a bubbly little girl. Even her pink eyes seemed to take on a different personality, the innocence of childhood and the cold hard understanding of life as a ninja. No one knew which was her true self, maybe she herself didn't know. It wasn't a split personality because she was the same person, only acted. Good, I'm glad to hear she'll be fine now. The tone changed abruptly, we appear to have some overseers from various countries. At the waterfall, I noticed 2 Anbu trying to hide and 2 Akatsuki hiding beneath Genjutsu. The Anbu have no idea that I have sensed their chakra and have already located their hiding place. We don't have to be concerned about the Akatsuki. Do you know where those Anbu are coming from, Kanshisha-sama? Mataza inquired. I'm not sure, but I believe they're from Konoha, and that there are 2 more out there somewhere. And what about the Akatsuki, Naruto-sama? Tanoko continued, I'm sorry, but the fact that they know where to look for you means that you could be in danger. I agree, said Tsubaki quietly, as your personal guardian and protector and member of the Reizoku clan, we cannot put your life in jeopardy. Naruto smiled to himself. Here he was, the leader of the village he founded with the love of his life, surrounded by his subordinates who knew how powerful he was but still worried about his safety. It warmed his heart. Thank you all, he said, but there's no need to be concerned because one of the 2 was Itachi, the hopeful 10th dragon. I left him a message knowing this. What did it say, Naru-sama? Asked Shiger. We are still waiting. I expect to hear back soon, he said as he shifted in his seat. For the final order, Tanoko, I want you to inform as many ninja as possible about our little observers, as I'm sure they'll find our village sooner or later. Tell them not to do anything unless they are absolutely certain they are not supposed to be there. We leave at 6 a.m. to give everyone enough time to sleep. Dismissed. Hi, and they were gone, leaving him to face his greatest foe yet, a threat that knew no bounds, claiming politicians, lawyers, doctors, daimyos, village leaders, and cages alike. It had a simple name, but everyone knew it and its evil well. It was paperwork. Naruto was tearing through several sheets when he heard a knock on the door and his secretary called out. Uzumaki-sama, the team you requested has arrived. Please send them in. The team of 4 Chunin entered, consisting of 2 assassination unit members and 2 intelligence unit members, one of whom was an old friend named Fuma Sasama. "Naruto, you wanted to see us?" she asked, only because she was a personal friend of both Naruto and Hinata. "How's Akira doing, by the way?" "I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure she's alive, so don't worry," Naruto said, smiling at her expression. "You're going to tell me where you 3 went one day?" "I'm sorry, but that's a secret," Sasama grumbled. "So, what exactly is the mission?" "It's a B-rank disposal mission. You must clear out the bodies in the waterfall caves and return them to the hospital's basement for preservation. Because of the threat of enemy nin, I've also assigned 2 nins from the assassination unit to act as your bodyguards on this team. Prepare to leave at 8 o'clock tomorrow, and don't let your guard down." "You are dismissed with that." "Alright, it'll be done, and when Akira returns, we'll have to catch up on old times." "You got it," he said as they walked out the door. Mataza was in the hospital visiting someone when the doctor told her that she was stable and would recover completely thanks to Naruto's quick actions. She was still unconscious and wouldn't likely wake up for a long time because of the blood loss from the attack. "I will not apologize for what I did," Mataza told the sleeping beauty, "but I do hope you can forgive me." He sat on a chair between her bed and a wall with a window overlooking the street, holding her hands in his. For a brief moment, he noticed someone he recognized but had never had the opportunity or misfortune to meet. "It appears that our time together will have to be cut short," he stood up from his chair, "but I will return soon." He vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto was sitting at his desk, looking over the Academy's reports and several other documents, when he set the paper down and leaned back in his seat. A figure emerged from the shadows behind him and moved towards his vulnerable and unprotected back. A ninjutsu, along with a metal spike that emerged from the floor, halted the figure's progress as it was within arm's length of Naruto. "Welcome to my office, Uchiha Itachi," Naruto said as he spun around in his chair. "I have been expecting you, please have a seat." "Tsubaki, Mataza, it's okay, you could let him go now." They did as they were told, though they both kept a close eye on him because they were on opposite sides of Naruto. "Your subordinates hold you in high regard, Uzumaki-san." "The respect is mutual, Itachi-san," Naruto replied. "Have you considered my offer?" "I have, indeed." "What decision have you made?" Itachi approached the front of the desk, looking at the village leader. He then did something that no one would have ever expected him to do. In total submission, Uchiha Itachi knelt on one knee and averted his gaze to the floor. "As much as I would like to join your village and ranks, pressing matters prevent me from ever doing so." Naruto could swear he heard sadness in Itachi's lifeless tone. "But please allow me to be loyal to you despite my lack of membership. As proof of my loyalty, I have information to give you." "I see," Naruto stated solemnly. "What information do you have?" "Information on Akatsuki, the Sharingan, and the Konoha Anbu who are keeping an eye on the ongoing conflict." Naruto's eyes widened as he heard this. Something wasn't right. "Okay, what can you tell me?" He tried to calm down. "2 were observing us at the waterfall, and since Konoha Shinobi move in groups of 4, I assume the other 2 were observing Hinata, but that would be foolish." "How so?" "If I detected them, it would require far less effort on her part to do the same, long before they noticed her." "I see," he said solemnly. "Then she should observe 3 Anbu operatives." "How is that possible?" "The other is from a separate organization that is not sanctioned by Hokage-sama. They are called Root and are led by a man named Danzo. He wishes to become Hokage by any means that does not jeopardize Konoha's strength or reputation, and his ideals are always promoting Konoha through war." "I see," he said thoughtfully, "but what about the Akatsuki?" "As Jiraiya-sama may have told you, the Akatsuki is a group of missing S-class nin, of which there are currently only 9 members, including myself. Itachi went on to explain the Akatsuki's motivations and how the nine-tailed beasts played a role. He described how Orochimaru was once a member but had to flee after attempting to attack Itachi and being easily defeated. Most importantly, there is another member. He may not act like it when he appears, but he is the most important and dangerous member. He paused. He is the true leader of Akatsuki and the one who assisted in the murder of my clan, Uchiha Madara. Is he really that dangerous? Mataza wondered. Itachi had a blank expression on his face. You may not know, but Uchiha Madara, at the time, was one of the two most powerful shinobi in Konohagakure, if not the entire ninja world. He was the head of the Uchiha clan and co-founder of Konoha with Senju Hashirama. Itachi paused again to allow his audience to process the information. Itachi went on, this time with knowledge of the Sharingan and all of its dark secrets. I see, Naruto sighed. I never thought the Sharingan had such a high price to pay, but I am not entirely surprised, and it only seems to get worse as it gains power. Naruto rose from his seat and approached Itachi, placing a hand on his shoulder. You must be a strong man to be dealing with such despair. Your life has been nothing but tragedy. Despair, Itachi thought for a moment. I couldn't have described it better myself. Itachi, you say you want to be one of us and give us all this information, but you say you have pressing issues, he almost said to himself. I'm not sure even you understand. I think I do, he snapped back. You're almost at your limit and your heart can't take it any longer, so the best way for you to end it is by the hands of the one you care about the most, and you hope that he grows up strong and happy as a result of your death and in some way redeems yourself. I apologize for being impolite, but I must depart now before I am missed. Itachi approached the window but was stopped by a firm hand. He moved to release his arm but felt strangely weak in a small stinging sensation where Naruto held him. He turned around to see Naruto had stabbed him with a sleeping drug-laced pin. It was something made by Hinata herself, so it was quick acting, denying the Uchiha even the ability to retaliate. What? He mumbled, but Naruto cut him off. If you're anything like your brother, you'll be too stubborn to listen to reason. I will not interfere with what you have planned for Sasuke. You've done a lot for us, so allow me to do something for you. As sleep took hold of Itachi's wary mind, he fell into the arms of awaiting Mataza and Naruto. Wow, this stuff works fast. What did she use in this? Naruto remarked as he placed Itachi's body in the center of the room. He then directed Tsubaki and Mataza to return all of the furniture to the wall so that he could work. After that, he stripped Itachi of his clothes and left him naked on the floor. Tsubaki did an excellent job of pretending she didn't see anything. Naruto removed a kunai from his clothing and proceeded to cut a vessel in his arm, allowing the blood to run down his arm and along his pointer and middle finger like a pen as he proceeded to draw intricate lines like a tribal tattoo all over his body from head to toe. It was difficult because the blood would stop flowing and he would have to reopen the vessel while being careful not to make any mistakes or smudges. He paused after about 2 hours and ordered Mataza to turn over the sleeping Sharingan user once the blood had dried. What are you doing, most excellent leader? How many times must I tell you to call me Naruto? I can't help myself if it's true, Naruto-sama. Naruto sighed and began writing similar lines, patterns, and symbols from his neck to his feet on the back of the Uchiha. It is a forbidden fuinjutsu called Musei Shikyo, he continued drawing. Once activated, the seal puts the body in a death-like state and perfectly preserves the body and mind until unsealed. The seal can be activated by either the one doing the sealing, the one being sealed, or if the one being sealed is on the verge of death. He finished the last kanji and checked his work for errors. However, once sealed, it can only be unlocked by someone who knows how to do this fuinjutsu, he explained as he flashed through a series of hand signs before stopping on Rooster and saying, Fuinjutsu, Musei Shikyo. The lines and symbols that covered Itachi's entire body began to move as if on their own and receded to a single point on his chest in the form of a tiny black skull with a red knife clenched in its teeth. Alright, I'm done. Let's get him dressed, and I'd like you to get some rest because we have a battle to win tomorrow. The sun peered warily above the horizon, casting golden rays across the battlefield. It understood the significance of this day and the blood that would soon flow like a river. It would cry if it were a cloud, how could men so freely and easily slaughter one another, but the heavens would not cry today for foolish mortal men. Samurai dashed around in the early morning light, carrying out last-minute orders and putting on battle gear and armor. One man stood out from the crowd, patiently waiting at the camp's entrance atop a brown stallion also clad in armor. Its rider wore a red oni mask over his face and carried a katana and wakizashi at his side. Have the ninjas shown up yet, Matsu-sama? No, it appears we are on our own. He sighed and turned to face his colleague. Go organize the men into battle formations, he said, because today will be a day when we die with honor and glory for our Lord. Yes. But before he could continue, the man was stopped by a female hand on his shoulder. Don't be so hasty, Matsu-san, the crimson-lipped seductress of the 10 Dragons said. We were late because we had some last-minute preparations to make. It's fine, Matsu replied. You're right on time. We haven't started forming up yet. Please come this way. He looked over to the general by his side. Man up, the battle is coming. Yes. The general galloped off to organize the men into their ranks. Hinata and the other followed Matsu into the encampment. They noticed the look of determination on the faces of the heavily armored samurai as they walked along the ranks. Lady Hinata, I noticed there are only 3 of you. Could you please tell me where they are and how this affects the plan? Riku-san needs to meet up with his Kanta and Jin team. What about the plan? There's no need to worry, Matsu-dono, she reassured with a gentle smile. Itenpai and the remaining dragons will arrive in time, and if they don't, for whatever reason, I'll personally cover your back while your forces make a tactical retreat. Please have faith in us. Do I have any other choice, as if we'd retreat just because a few people aren't here? The words weren't meant for Hinata to hear, but Matsu underestimated her senses. It didn't matter anymore. The troops were prepared and marched forward to meet their opponents. This day, win or lose, would be a bloody glorious one. Taiko, it appears that the samurai are about to leave, said an Anbu wearing a tiger mask. It also appears that their 3 ninja allies are not present. Do you think it's some elaborate plan? Asked the team's 3rd member. I'm not sure, he said as he rose from his perch, but our orders are to observe and not interfere. What we've seen could be very important to Konoha if we can form an alliance with this new hidden village, said the 4th member, who, like the rest of his team, kept a safe distance from the approaching army. That would be great, the captain continued, but the fact that the Hyuga heiress is assisting this village may make matters far worse. Should we retrieve her, sir? Asked the tiger-masked Anbu. No, our mission is strictly intelligence gathering. Additionally, if she is a loyal member of this village, it could be dangerous if we run into the other 5 members you and the lion saw at the waterfall if a retrieval fails. The 2 Anbu in question were at the falls during the fight against the 50 IWA Shinobi. They did not witness the fight, so they returned under the cover of darkness to assess the situation. What they saw in the cave's caverns will live on in their memories. They discovered 44 corpses, all of which were Iwa Shinobi. In one case, it appeared as if 8 men had simply died where they stood. No, these were people with whom they did not want to have a direct conflict. Understood. Lady Hinata, your eyes, one of the lieutenants asked as his horse approached hers, are they the legendary Byakugan? This is not the time or place to be distracted, Lieutenant. And stop being disrespectful to our esteemed allies, one of the generals chastised him. My deepest apologies, Hyuga-sama, he bowed awkwardly on his horse. It's okay, she said as she deactivated her dojutsu and smiled sweetly at him, but don't ever call me by that name again. Hinata-sama, yes. Such a frightening woman, chuckled Matsuo to himself. Do you think she noticed us when she used her Byakugan, Taiko? Most likely, but Hinata Hyuga is the weakest link in her clan, so we should be safe at this distance. If they only knew the truth. There appear to be many observers today, but why is Anbu attempting to remain unseen by the others, particularly those from Konoha? I'll keep an eye out for that one. The samurais suddenly came to a halt as archers took up frontal positions and horseback riders prepared their weapons. The enemy had arrived. They were lined up in almost identical phalanx, but their sheer numbers were overwhelming, with massive machines of war, catapults and ballistas all primed and ready. It was obvious now, this campaign will not end until the Earth Army's total dominance or their total defeat. I give you the order, General. As you please, my lord. Meanwhile, back at the Whirlpool Samurai, the men began to appear frail, and Matsuo could see it. Citizens and warriors of Whirlpool, hear me, he commanded loudly. Today is a glorious day like no other, a day on which we show that even though we are a small nation, we are a great nation. The size of our army means nothing, only the heart of the warrior and the strength of his resolve. He put on his Oni mask and faced the enemy, his heart racing with rage. Today is a day that will go down in history, for the greedy and the wicked will no longer take advantage of us, because we are strong. From this day on, Uzumaki no Kuni will become a name equal to greatness. He turned back to his troops, hardening some of them with the demon visage he wore. Now go, and shish. He drew his sword, and the men followed his action with a resolve that burned deep within their souls. Charge, the WHILRPOOL samurai. The poor fools only motivate themselves to charge into the face of death, said the Earth General to himself. Archers, to the front, he ordered, and a large crowd of men holding bows filed forward in 5 lines, each removing an arrow from their quiver and placing it in their bow. Ready! Yelled the general. The archers drew their bows back until they made a strained stretching sound. Perhaps they should not have done so. Snap. They looked at each other, puzzled as to what had happened when the string on each of their bows snapped. What does this mean? The general inquired when he noticed no drawn bow in the air. It's our bows, General. The strings suddenly broke and there's no time to repair, said one archer, frantically showing the general his ruined bow. In his rage, he backhanded the man and threw him to the ground. Useless, he muttered under his breath, get out of my way, all of you, and ready the catapults and ballisters. Even that, however, would end in disaster when, while attempting to load the weapon, a sizzling sound alerted the loaders to a burning piece of paper. Shit, he said as the weapons of war exploded into splinters, taking a number of troops with them. Damn it, this can't be a coincidence, swore the general, we have a saboteur in our midst. He racked his brain for answers, but he simply ran out of them. There was a battle going on, and the damage had already been done. He just had to keep going, but he had been humiliated, and he would exact his revenge on that horde of insects. As he saw the Whirlpool samurai approaching with blood in their eyes, he drew his sword and returned to the front of the ranks. Alright, if that's how they want to die, then so be it. He turned to face the people who were waiting for his order, charge. Kill them all. The two sides charged at each other. From afar, the Whirlpool forces appeared to be debris about to be swept away by the wave that was the Earth Army. They charged, battle cries echoing across the morning skies, and as they approached the Whirlpool army, they stopped and retreated in 4 different directions. Don't let them get away, the enraged general ordered, split up and chase them down. What are they up to? Is this some kind of strategy? Inquired one of the Konoha Anbu. Well, there's only one way to find out, said the captain. We'll split up and meet back here before looking for that village. Remember, this is only recognition. Do not engage or make your presence known. They were of with a soft chorus of "Hi," but what they didn't know was that the root agent had decided to follow Hinata's path. Ha 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 ha. Look at them. The Earth Daimyo laughed as he spoke to his personal bodyguards from atop his horse. Look how they flee from my awesome might. Ha. We have them cornered, an Earth Samurai said as one section of the fleeing Whirlpool Samurai found themselves backed up against a wide river. Do you have any final thoughts, Whirlpool dogs? Only a few, said the general in charge of this section. And what exactly is that? You're a fool, he said before charging the offender with his section of the Whirlpool Samurai at his back. The two quarters clashed and from afar, it appeared that the Whirlpool Samurai were hopelessly outnumbered, but for some reason, the Tsuchi army was being beaten and the Whirlpool army was not losing many samurai. Their swords always seemed to miss their target as they were slaughtered for a short time of poor skill. The battle was similar where the Whirlpool Samurai had been chased into trees. As the Tsuchi Samurai followed, they were peppered by innumerable arrows, and in other places where they had to fight without concealment, many of the Earth Samurai began turning on their comrades. They had been duped into falling into a trap. Had they provided more insight beyond their superior numbers and armaments, this could have been avoided, but they did not. Blast. The Tsuchi general cursed as he wounded another Whirlpool Samurai. What the hell is going on? My men are being slaughtered. There's no way all those samurai are skilled enough to fight such odds. This is a trap of some sort. Order the men to regroup, he said to a man with an instrument, who began blowing a repeated tune, and the Earth army from the four parts began pulling back to reform in the field from which they had started. Do you notice what's going on, Taiko? Inquired one Iwa Anbu of another. Indeed, it appears that all of the waterfall ninjas evaded capture. What are your instructions? Get rid of them so they don't cause any more trouble. They proceeded to carry out the orders with a silent "hi," but they were met with the sight of a figure in a hooded bell sleeve coat who stood in their path. They couldn't see his face because it was shrouded by the shadow of his hood, but it didn't stop the chill that ran down their spines. It appears that today is not your day. How did he sneak up on us without our knowledge? The captain reflected. It's as if he doesn't exist, another observed. Who the hell? Naruto moved with such speed that it appeared as if he vanished, and with the precision and ruthlessness that had been drilled into him over 4 years of hellish training, the four Anbu simply fell over, unconscious on the ground. Itenpai-sama, are they dead? Tsubaki inquired. No, Iwa's not our true adversary here. We are simply here to influence the outcome of this battle from the shadows. Tanoko, tie them up. There's no need for security because they won't wake up before this is over. Hello, Kanshisha-sama, he said, pulling ninja wire from his pouch. Are we going to keep the other spectators quiet? There is no need. Only Iwa would have gotten involved, and the other spectators would only be aware of shinobi interference, he explained, and if everything goes as planned, they will think it was Waterall Nin. Naruto looked around the battlefield and noticed the Tsuchi samurai regrouping. It appears that the Earth Army has made it through Phase 1, Mataza said. Should I notify Tsukihana-sama to let them know that Phase 2 has begun? Yes, please do that, and when you're finished, could you please look after our honored guests? Shigur, I want you to get ready and find a safe spot. Tanoko, your job is to keep her safe while she does that jutsu, he said to the other members of the team as Mataza dashed away. Let's go, Tsubaki. Meanwhile, the Konoha Anbu were watching the battle with interest. The Whirlpool army had managed to defeat half of the Earth army, but they were still outnumbered 5-1, a vast improvement from the previous 10-1 state. This is intriguing, the captain said. What exactly is it, Taiko? Large-scale genjutsu, kirigakure no jutsu, cage shuriken no jutsu, and some kind of deception technique. The captain determined these unknown ninja appear to be more skilled than we thought. We would have wondered how they got so powerful if we hadn't scouted the waterfall village yesterday. They appear to be regrouping? So far, it appears that the Hyuga or those with her have avoided direct combat. Do you think she'd do it now that they're still outnumbered? I'm hoping so. What happened, Taiko? It would enable us to examine how she has changed over time. The daimyo was furious as the Tsuchi samurai regrouped in the field. He was certain that this would have been a decisive battle, but his force had been whittled down to a mere half of the forces. What could have caused this? It makes no difference because they are still outnumbered. They waited in the clearing. In the open they had the advantage, but how long would they last if they were attacked from four sides? It would probably be a bad idea for the Whirlpool Ninja to attack them head-on like this, but you never know. That's when they heard it, like a beautiful angel whispering loudly as her voice was carried on the wind. It was beautiful to hear, but they couldn't enjoy it because the next thing they heard was a battle cry of humans accompanied by animal roars. What kind of jutsu is this? Inquired the visibly shocked Anbu captain. I understand your feelings, Taiko, one of his subordinates replied. Whoever is responsible for that voice is most similar to the one controlling those animals like that. It's almost terrifying to think if that person could control summons. That, my friend, is something to be afraid of. They emerged from the surrounding lands, both man and beast, ready to tear the enemy apart with vengeance. The Tsuchi samurai were too stunned to comprehend what was going on. The more superstitious among them began to suspect that Kami-sama himself was angry with them, or that the land itself would rise up in retaliation. This lowered the morale of the entire army, but they continued to prepare, though they were no longer certain of their victory. Even the general's inflated pride was taking a beating as he led his men into battle. What kind of magic is this? He asked, parrying a Whirlpool samurai's sword strike and slashing him across the chest. Wouldn't you like to know? A young masculine voice from behind him said, if you can defeat me, I will reveal our secrets. The Earth General observed the boy, who appeared to be about 15 or 16 years old, as the animals ripped into his men who were distracted or occupied by samurai. It didn't look good. If you want to die young, that's fine. He charged at the boy with surprising speed for a man his age, lunging at him and attempting to stab him through the stomach. The boy deflected the strike and brought his katana to the back of the general's neck to cut off his head with a fluid spinning movement. The general, on the other hand, used the momentum of the lunge to tuck into a roll and avoid the attack. It appears that I may have overestimated you a little, young man, he said, but you are still 100 years too young to face the likes of me in battle. Then come prove your words, old man, retorted the boy, raising his sword and charging the general, and your life will be forfeit with my next strike. Big words for a brat, he said as he prepared to teach this boy a combat lesson, but it will be you who will be forced to see the error of your ways. They drew closer and closer together, swords poised to strike and counterattack. The general's eyes gleamed as he saw all the gaps in the boy's attack. To be young and foolish, he reasoned as he avoided the low straight thrust for his lower abdomen, but the battlefield is no place for folly. The boy then turned his blade in an attempt to cut off his feet, but the general simply jumped over the poor attempt as he brought down his sword to stab the boy in the back, but the smile faded when he realized his sword stabbed only earth and a sharp pain lanced from his back to his chest. He tried to speak, but his lungs were filling with blood. You may wonder how. You vastly underestimated your foe, the boy said, pulling out his blade to let him bleed to death. When a man is attacked in his own home, he gains the strength of 10 men. A man who defends his hard-earned positions gains the strength of 100, and those who defend their loved ones gain the strength of 1,000. He leaned in closer to whisper something into his ear. Even without our assistance, the Whirlpool army would have beaten yours. They have much more to fight for than you do, he said as he looked around with dying eyes at his men, who were dropping like flies despite still having the numerical advantage. This battle will end with your death, and your men will be saved. I'm truly sorry that it ended this way. Death on the battlefield may be an honorable way to die, but without the proper cause, it's the same as throwing away your life. With those words ringing in his ears, the general closed his eyes, knowing that he would have an eternity to think about it, but it would be an eternity too late. The camel's back was finally broken after the general's death at the hands of the mysterious teenager. The Earth Samurai simply surrendered. They had more numbers than the Whirlpool, but no more will to fight. After seeing the animals themselves rise to attack them and then watching your general get killed by a boy no older than 16, and to make matters worse, seeing your comrades fall one after another as if you were the one with the disadvantage. Impossible, the daimyo yelled from his perch. How could this have occurred? It's simple, a feminine voice replied from behind him as he turned to meet the stern gaze of one Hyuga Hinata and his personal guards, who were face down on the dirt. Numbers was your only advantage. Why is a Hyuga present? Does the Fire Country have anything to do with this? He wondered, terrified. No, I assure you they have nothing to do with this, and the outcome will not be known for at least another day. Then you must be the missing Hyuga princess, says the narrator. He had an idea to get out of this, or so he thought. This Hyuga was being pursued, and she was stunning to say the least, and by ninja standards, she was supposed to be weak in both body and mind. I have an offer for you, he said with a smile on his lips. I can give you power and riches beyond your wildest dreams. All you have to do is come with me and it can all be yours. Hinata saw what he wanted and what he was after, which enraged her, but she would not let this slime get under her skin, so she approached him, placed a hand on his cheek, and spoke in her sweetest tone while he writhed in pain. You have brought great hardship to my country, and now you want to recruit me? Kyutaro Naiman, daimyo of Uzumaki no Kuni, has stated that he has never and will never attempt to claim any lands by conquest. She took her hands off his cheek, which was red from the Jiyuken she used on him. She turned to walk away, her hair swaying gracefully in the breeze. She returned to him for one last message. You will be forced to pay reparations for your actions here today. She turned away from him, but know this, if you refuse to pay or bring war to this place again, Iwa will not be able to save the swift end I will bring. As she said this, two men approached her, each carrying two men wearing white masks and dropping them at his feet. You Shreshian Mwerr? Are you trying to scare me? He tried to speak, but his jaw was in too much pain to do so. No, the second part was not from the daimyo. It was a promise from those you were unaware of. Ooh, are you there? What is your name? He inquired. We are the Storm, they said, and then they were gone. For the first time, the daimyo of the Earth Country felt as if he were 90 years old, and it was clear that he had made a terrible mistake that his country and himself would have to pay for. Alright, it's done, and we have our data. Let's go. The Anbu sailed through the trees without leaving a trace, but came to a halt when a deformed individual stood in their path. They looked at him cautiously, each reaching for their weapons in case they had to fight for their lives. Who are you and what are you after? We have no grudge against you. That's great to hear, he said, but I'm not going to tell you my name. So, what exactly do you want? Kanshi Shatu has sent a message. He says you have to give it to Hokage. And what exactly is this message? The message is, I found a stray root today. What does a stray root mean? Asked one of the subordinates. And what about the other? We'll meet soon, and I need my cursed pendant back. What does the root thing mean? Asked the same subordinate again. My mission is complete. Please deliver the message to Hokage. Hi, I'm talking to you. Kanta, however, did not respond and dashed off in the direction of his comrades. Leave it. The captain said, we've completed our mission safely, let's just return to Konoha and report in. What about that message and locating their base of operations? It'll be useless now, obviously we're in their HNDS now, so let's not overstay, the captain said as he jumped to another branch, and the message, we'll just give it to Hokage-sama.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.